Hi, I'm Marci Kobayashi, and I am back again with another excerpt from Finding Yoyu. And in the last one, I was a little emotional because we had to say goodbye to our dear four-legged friend Fuku-chan. And this time, it's emotional with a different kind of emotion. So I can promise I won't be crying. I'll jump right in. Here we go. Akira and Otosan got back from their trip to Hiroshima in the evening. Even though they had just said goodbye to Fuku-chan, Otosan was in high spirits when he came through our front door. I was relieved to hear that he didn't question Akira when it was time to leave the family home and return to Tokyo. After a late dinner, Otosan went to his room to unpack, and we went to bed shortly thereafter. The following morning, Akira was up earlier than I expected and already dressed when he came out into the living room. He had a committee meeting at the university. Suddenly, my plans for the day had to change, and it felt like déjà vu. Otosan had an appointment with the doctor, and once again, I would have to take him. I felt my whole body radiating anger. We exchanged a few unpleasant words, and Akira left without eating breakfast. As I washed my face and changed my clothes, I tried to dissect our conversation and fill in the unspoken words. Because the new school year hadn't started yet, and it was Friday, Akira's usual day at home, I assumed he would take his father to the doctor. It was wrong of me, and I should have made sure. Likewise, I wanted to believe that since I work from home, Akira had simply assumed that I would be available to take Otosan. Then I remembered that Otosan's doctor appointment hadn't been anywhere on Akira's radar when I reminded him of it. I felt the anger flash through me again. It was as if, now that they were home, Akira no longer had to think about Otosan. I was probably exaggerating the issue in my mind, but something felt off between the two of us. We were supposed to be a team. We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses from years of working together. Surely we could figure out how to take care of Otosan in a way that worked for us both, except that today it didn't feel like we were a team. I knew Akira was stressed about the new school year and understandably tired from the trip to Hiroshima. On his way out the door, he had mumbled something about wishing he had a vacation. He probably thought I had enjoyed a quiet break while they were in Hiroshima. Little did he know that I had worked while they were away, trying to make up for the lost hours. My quiet break was filled with long, distraction-free hours at my computer and visiting Otosan in the hospital, of course. I felt like I needed a vacation, too. I knew that Akira was grateful that I paid careful attention to his father's needs, but I couldn't help feeling marginalized, as if his work was more important than my work. How could I help him understand that I wanted to be present and take care of his father and focus on my new clients too? Arguing about who was going to take Otosan to the appointment was silly. My anger wasn't about the time or energy it took for the appointment itself. I just wanted to be asked. I didn't like it when things were assumed. I felt taken for granted. As I banged around in the kitchen, my Gemini brain kicked in, and a new thought surfaced from the opposite perspective. If I felt taken for granted, could it be that I was taking Akira for granted? Why did I think Akira should ask me to take Otosan to the doctor? We had both willingly agreed to shoulder the responsibility of Otosan together. Then I felt guilty. I felt guilty for expecting Akira to ask me, and I felt guilty that I hadn't asked and yet automatically assumed Akira would do it. And then I hated that I felt guilty. I resented that Akira didn't remember Otosan had an appointment. I hated that he had to go to the university and therefore couldn't take his father even if he had wanted to. I hated that I knew or suspected that Akira really didn't want to be the one to take his father. Then I hated Akira for not wanting to do more for his father, and then I felt guilty for hating Akira. The chatter in my head was making me crazy. It was counterproductive, and I had so much to do. I desperately needed help grounding my energy back into my default happy state. I didn't want my frustration and irritation from our argument to swallow the day. Otosan was oblivious to my discomfort or politely ignored it. After he finished breakfast and went to his room, I pulled out my laptop. Sitting on the living room floor with my hands on the keyboard, I began to meditate. I closed my eyes, slowed my breathing, and asked for help. As I meditated, the memory of when Spider visited me in Hiroshima the summer before surfaced. I remembered how, after hiding away all day, she would come out at night and spend hours rebuilding her web before it was ready for capturing a meal. Her web and the meticulous way she attended to it was beautiful. Beautiful, yes, but was it efficient? Every day the wind would take part of the web with it, and Spider would have to rebuild her web again the next day and the next in order to catch anything. But her web worked for her, and she rebuilt it or repaired it every night without fail. Maybe we were just like spiders. Maybe people needed to take time to rebuild their webs every day too. Was I doing this? Or was I showing up every day with a broken web and expecting it to work for me? What would I need to do to rebuild my web? What was my web? I smiled and imagined my mother saying, "Only you would compare your life to a spider, Marci." The underlying resentment about Otosan's appointment lingered, but my heart and spirit were coming back into ease. Otosan's appointment wouldn't take long. We would be back before lunch, which would leave me several hours to work, even if I visited Otosan. And more importantly, I had a new plan going forward. Otosan would have many doctor's appointments in the future, and I would plan them around my schedule. If Akira was available, great. If he wasn't available, then I would be able to take Otosan at a time that worked for me. If Spider started her day by rebuilding her web, I could too. I vowed to save the morning hours for me. The early morning before breakfast would be my time, for reading, writing, and meditating. The hours after breakfast and before lunch would be for my business. A half day wasn't enough, but it would have to be. The afternoon would be for visiting Okasan and taking care of Otosan and his appointments. I took a deep breath. The residue from our morning argument was gone. I closed my laptop and went to tell Otosan it was time to go. The sun was pouring into my office, and I saw a little spider on the screen outside the window next to my desk as I grabbed my purse and keys. Okay, that's all for today. And I'd like to say that it was perfect after that, and we never had any more miscommunication about appointments. And it did get a lot easier because I did stick to that rule as much as possible, that I would be available or make sure that it was a time when I was available to take Otosan when we made appointments. But there were still a few times, but it really did get better after that. So maybe that will help somebody else. I don't know. Anyway, I'll be back next week to talk about bean buns and coconut oil. So that's all for now.